Hello, Rob from Fountain Pen Journey with a review of 2020's possibly most hotly anticipated fountain pen, which, well, I asked the question way back in the early part of 2020, will you be buying this fountain pen? This is my review of the Platinum Curidas fountain pen. This is the Graphite Smoke version of the fountain pen. The Platinum Curidas, well, what can I say? It's a retractable nib fountain pen, which for its own, own merits is interesting. It's roughly half the price of the Pilot Vanishing Point, and I will be doing a comparison video between the Platinum Curidas and the Pilot Vanishing Point, or Pilot Capless fountain pens. I will be doing a comparison of these two pens. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications, and you will be notified when that goes live. But today we're just going to review the Platinum Curidas fountain pen, and it is, to be honest, not a looker. In my opinion, it looks a little bit like a fish. Don't know why, but it's just something about maybe the design. The colours certainly don't help, but it's got that sort of Piscine look. Maybe these look like gills or something. It's interesting, and I've got a whole load of things to tell you about this pen, both good and bad, and really recommend that you would watch the full video to see exactly all of those points. So let's talk about the pen. First off, retractable nib fountain pen. So therefore it is not your conventional design. We've got basically a pen body, the pen body down here, which is basically the section, the clip, the barrel, and this plunger to extend and retract the nib. And I'll go through the mechanism in a short while, but we'll cover various parts of the pen. We'll start off with the size, because this pen is quite long. So let's compare it with the Lamy Vista, which is the same size as the All-Star and Safari. So already you can see the Platinum Curidas is, we're getting on for a good 2 centimeters, maybe even an inch longer, with this push in, push out button system. Uncapped, I shall do that. So uncapped, side by side, still a good 1.5 centimeters longer than the Vista or Lamy Safari uncapped, and if I post it, then you can see exactly what we're talking about there. So I mean, obviously with the posted Lamy Vista, it's a definite inch longer than the nib extended Platinum Curidas. Let's pop this away. I'm not going to talk about the weight of this pen. I am going to talk about the weight, but I'm not going to measure the weight, because that will be in the comparison video that I'm going to do for the Platinum Curidas versus the Pilot Vanishing Point, because there is a significant difference there. But this is a plastic fountain pen, and it is really quite lightweight. It's not a heavy pen at all. It comes in a box, a very nice looking box and everything, and there is also a tool in the box where you can actually remove this clip. Now I wouldn't recommend trying to remove these clips without using the tool, because I've heard that quite often breaks the pen, and this is something that I do need to talk about. For a cheap retractable fountain pen, I would say that this is a very nice go-to. simply because of the price and the fact that it is relatively cheap, and it's retractable. So it's great for quick notes, shopping lists, quick notes in meetings, things like that. People might complain about the noise, but that tends to be a lot of people who use fountain pens complain about the clicking noise, because anyone who's been in a meeting using any sort of ballpoint or rollerball pen which has a, you know, this sort of mechanism, you know, it's no big deal to them, but for fountain pen fans that seems to be a bit of an issue. So let me hold this up to the microphone. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not annoying, but it's a very cheap feeling plastic. So we'll talk about the parts of the pen to begin with. Now this end here where the nib comes out, there are some structural strengthening nibs inside there, and in my mind this pen really needs those, because this is it's not tough plastic. I mean, the Lamy Vista, we're talking, you know, fairly tough. Lamy Safari, you know, ABS plastic, very, very tough. This is not. This is the sort of pen which could quite easily crush, break. I can see why so many people have had issues with this, if you like, cap area cracking or fracturing, because it is not tough. And it is also not particularly well made, because you can see these where it's been, I don't know, machined off, sawn off on here. Those ribs for strengthening are really, really sharp. I mean, you can really feel that with your fingertip. It's not brilliantly finished. They really should be smoother. And to put this amount of work into designing a retractable nib fountain pen and not really get the finish quite right, especially for the price, not really happy. I'm going to talk about the price, because when I asked the question to my viewers way back in, I think it might have been February or March in 2020, and I said, will you be buying the Platinum Curidas? One thing that came out was the fact that the recommended retail price was around about £95, £85, which is just ridiculous for this pen, and it would have been a massive disaster for Platinum if they'd have carried on trying to sell these pens at that price, because it is way too close to the Pilot Vanishing Point, which is a far superior fountain pen. But when I do my comparison video, you will see that there are differences between the two, where this has got its own merits over the Vanishing Point. So I saw these pens come on the market in the UK, and I think they were £85.95. However, after a month or two, obviously they weren't selling particularly well, and the price was dropped to, I think, around £75 from Cult Pens. However, they had various offers on throughout the year, and with up to 10 or sometimes even 20% off. And suddenly these pens actually fitted into a price bracket which was, in my mind, not just more affordable, but also more what these pens are actually worth. Because holding it, it feels cheap. It is not feeling like an expensive fountain pen. Certainly not in the region of $75 and upwards. Definitely not that sort of quality. So let's carry on talking about the actual fountain pen. So we have this slight taper down to this flattish. It is actually ever so slightly angled there. And underneath there is this nub, or two nubs to be precise, with a gap. And the reason for that is, I'll show you from the side actually. Try and get this to focus. You know what, I'll hold the pen in its correct orientation as I extend the nib. Now you can see this orifice here. That is the seal for the nib. So when you push it, the whole unit moves forward as the lid drops down. Now this lid has, you can see there is this hinge, and the hinge drops down into that knob. So this is a recess, and these knobs either side are there to protect this white, looks like it could be nylon, some sort of plastic knob or hinge goes in between these two knobs. So I'll show you that again. So it drops down into there. You can just about hear this sealing, well, the seal breaking, and I will tell you more about that in a short while. You can see the spring here inside the cap. This clip is not repositionable. It's also, in my view, very short, but it's functional. It's nothing special, and it sort of barely holds on, but it holds on quite tightly, and this is why you do need that tool which comes in the box to remove this clip if you don't want to use the clip. Some people find that holding this pen, the clip gets in the way, so therefore they want to remove the clip, and then you're left with an even uglier plastic fountain pen with a retractable nib. They are demonstrator fountain pens. There's an urban green version which is quite nice. There is a blue version, it's something like ocean blue, and a dark red version as well, which also looks quite nice. This graphite smoke is, in my view, you know, something fairly utilitarian, and I thought it would be a good match for this fountain pen. There's a silver ring, and I'll dismantle the pen in a moment. Curidas in this sort of futuristic looking typeface font, and yeah, you can feel a bit of moulding, injection moulding going on there. There is a slight thing, I mean it's not awful, but it's definitely there. There are strengthening ribs inside the pen. These are not on the external surface. The external surface is smooth, and then up here you've got the plunger, which, once again, my comparison between this pen and the Platinum Curidas and the Pilot Vanishing Point will highlight a few things about these plungers. It does extend, in my view, way too far out of the pen. It looks odd. It also goes in an awful long way. We're looking at more than an inch worth, about an inch and a half worth of travel. So when you're using this fountain pen, say you're just taking it out of your pocket or whatever, to use it, you've really got to extend your thumb all the way up there. It's a bit like when smartphones had 5-inch screens and everyone thought that was big, and now they've got sort of 6.5-inch screens, 7-inch screens sometimes, and trying to reach around the screen is difficult, and quite honestly this falls into the same category. If you've got small hands, that action is going to be tricky. I'm not saying it's difficult, but it's just kind of, it's excessive, little bit too excessive, but the actual mechanism does feel good. It's very satisfying, very positive, and good fun. So let's unscrew this and we can see what's going on inside. So here's the barrel, and this thing that just, you know, loose. Cheap plastic, really cheap plastic, nothing fancy about that. And now this, I hope that pushes out. There we go, shake it back out. It's just not great. Let's stand that there. So in here we've got all sorts of stuff going on. We've got this, if you like, captured nib unit, which if you follow these, it all comes out. Don't lose the spring because that does ping out. And you have the feed plain black plastic feed, steel nib, platinum nib, steel nib, quite a small nib, and the section, I suppose you can call it that, this all locks together, and there is a platinum cartridge in this pen. You can fit a converter into this pen, once again platinum, so it's a proprietary platinum cartridge, proprietary platinum converter you need to use with this pen, and you get a cartridge included with this pen, and it fits quite well in there. You have to, there are instructions. I'm not going to do it because I can see myself making a right mess of this, but that all goes in there, and this then slides back into position down to there. I will also state that these lugs, these trunnions, or one trunnion, doesn't fill me with quality confidence. It's quite small, and I can imagine that being chewed up quite easily if you get it wrong. So try and get this into there, turn that, and then it slides back into this locked position here. This thing here does protect the converter or the cartridge from being damaged. On the Vanishing Point there is it's like a cap that goes over here, same thing, but in that particular pen's case, that is where the mechanism pushes down on the end of the cartridge or the converter, whereas in this case with the Platinum Curidas it pushes down on this area here. So that greyish plastic you can see in there, that is pushing down on this bit here. So that's why the cartridge or converter doesn't get completely smashed up by the mechanism when you're almost certainly doing this. So let's talk about the writing experience. Right, first off, nib widths. You can get these pens, the Platinum Curidas, with a fine, medium, no, I think it is actually just fine and medium nibs. Correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on that, but I think it is just fine and medium. This is a medium nib, and let's see how it writes. That's the problem. All this hard start in here. Medium steel nib. I'm going to talk about the nib in a moment. Reasonably wet. I'd say that's medium wetness. And it lays down ink really well. Before I go any further, I'm going to talk about this business with the hard start up there. Platinum have, in general, really good fountain pens as far as the capping mechanisms go. They tend to have like the slip and seal capping mechanism, which prevents the nibs from drying out, which is, you know, absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. Don't use the pens for weeks, months on end, and it will write straight out of being uncapped. Brilliant. This system, upside down. This system doesn't seal particularly well. If you don't use this pen for 3 days, I've found on average, you'll get hard starting. Don't use it for a week. You're going to have to really shake ink down into the feed to get this pen to write, and even then you might have to write about a line of text before this nib will really start to flow freely. I mean, this pen is writing absolutely fine now. It's, you know, absolutely fine, but hard start there. And I know I was uncapping and, well, you know, retracting and extending the nib. I know I was doing that, but even that doesn't seem to be too much of an issue with this pen. It is if you don't use it for 3 or more days where you get these hard starting, which, to be perfectly honest, in most fountain pens wouldn't be too much of a big deal. It's sort of expected. It's not something that I generally find in most pens, and my worst performers for hard starting after not being used for any length of time have always been Jinhao fountain pens, just terrible. And since I've moved away from Jinhao fountain pens for the most part, I find that it's something I don't often experience. So to suddenly find that you get hard starts with this fountain pen is kind of annoying. So that is one thing. As far as the writing experience, forget about the hard start. If you're using this pen all the time, using it for quick notes here and there, or even longer writing periods, this is a really nice writing fountain pen. I know that the original reviews of the Platinum Curidas did state that some people found that their pens, the nibs, wrote really, really badly out of the box, to the point where they actually sent them back because it was just like, you know, I've paid for this pen and I don't like it, it doesn't write well, you can have it back. In my view, I haven't had any issues with this, and maybe it's because it's probably a later production run and they sorted out their quality control issues. But I like writing with the Platinum Curidas. Reverse writing, it's very, very smooth. I'd say extra fine, not a huge amount of ink being laid down, but it works, and as you can see, it keeps up. Quite dry, but it does a good job. It actually does write very, very well, and it's convenient in the fact that it's retractable. There are certain times when I'm writing and I might want to write with a fountain pen for a very long period of time, and I'm not going to be capping and uncapping the pen. However, there are times when I might be, say, in a conversation with my wife on and off, watching television while I'm writing, might want to comment on something. You know, there's enough to comment on TV these days, and just to be able to quickly retract the nib, it's pretty useful. And this pen for short note taking, it's a good one for meetings, simply because I don't want to be fiddling around, and if somebody says to me, oh, by the way, Rob, can you sort this out and look into doing something? Yeah, no problem. Done. No messing around. So it is convenient, and it is, if you can get these the Platinum Curidas with a discount, it is worth that money. I like these pens an awful lot. Wait until you see my opinion of the Pilot Vanishing Point. We'll see which one wins. But would I say that this is a recommended fountain pen? Strangely enough, I would. I think it's a really good fountain pen. I think it writes very, very well. Forget about the hard starting, because if you really are just going to be using it for note taking, have one lying around the house, you need to jot down someone's number, jot down somebody's number and you can ring that and annoy them. I don't know whose this is. No, I won't. But it's great because you can do whatever you want to do around the house with this pen. Chuck it in a bag. If it holds up and it doesn't smash to pieces, you've got a really good little sort of writer. Well, it's not a little writer, that's half of the problem. It is quite a big, long fountain pen, quite girthy too. I will also talk about right now how the writing experience is with this section, or the end of the barrel. People have complained about this clip. It gets in the way. It's like the Pilot Vanishing Point, the Lamy Dialogue 3, people complain about the clips being kind of in the way. Doesn't bother me with this pen and this tripod grip at all. In fact, I find it useful because it helps me to navigate to where the nib should be correctly orientated. It's also useful because without the clip it is actually quite easy to get this pen the wrong way around, and I find that these knobs don't really have enough contact with my fingers to make me realise that the pen's upside down, but you feel this clip. These knobs underneath, this is a second issue which people have commented about, the fact that they get in the way of their fingers. Now, it's going to depend entirely on where you hold the pen. I mean, if you're into holding the pen up here, even down here, for me, normal writing position, as you can see, the knob is a fraction of an inch, a couple of millimeters just before my finger down there. I don't even notice it. I don't feel it. I don't notice it. It doesn't get in the way. If you hold it way down here, yeah, you're going to feel the feel those knobs underneath. Similarly, the clip does not get in my way. If you want to remove it, you can do. It's you know, it's one of those possibilities, and they provide the tools for doing that. But for me, no issues whatsoever. There is a fix if you want to reverse the nib. So where the nib comes out like that in this direction, basically you flip it over 180 degrees so that you write with the pen upside down, so that these knobs don't get in the way of your fingers. So if you really must write with the pen all the way down here, though quite honestly I don't know why anyone would want to, but you know, it's how people hold pens, it's always different. It gets those knobs out of the way. You'd have to remove the clip though, I think, because that just, I think that would then start to get in the way. But there you have the full overview and review of the Platinum Curidas, and of course I do like this pen. It's one of those pens that with the discount codes I got, it was a worthwhile buy. In fact, you know what, I'll help you out. If you want the 10% off a Cult Pens order, which would include the Platinum Curidas, I'll put a discount code to Cult Pens in the bottom, in the description down below, and that will be a referral link. I don't get paid for that. I get 10% off when somebody orders using my link. You get 10% off using my link. I think it's a one-time only link, so if you're going to use it, then you know, fill your basket. But I'm in no way saying, you know, you must buy this from Cult Pens here in the UK. It's worth it. It's not worth the full price, but it's definitely worth it for, you know, a discounted price. And I've been using this pen for months now and really enjoying it, and it's fun. But it is definitely a pen that you have to remember every couple of days, you know, pick up the shopping list. Oh, can we add apples to the shopping list? Yep, okay. Oh no, I better find the Platinum Curidas in my pen pot, because ultimately it's going to start hard starting and that's going to annoy me. But it's a good writer. If you can keep this pen, you know, in regular use every day or every other day, I think you're going to be very happy, because this medium steel nib, which borders onto being a bit of a fine nib because it's a Japanese nib, it's excellent. I really like it. Reverse writing does a brilliant job. So Platinum Curidas actually does get a thumbs up from me. I like it a lot. I think it's a good pen. There are some, if you like, things to be aware of, but overall for me personally, I think it's a good pen. So thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye.